and 1.
All right. It is Tuesday, January 18th. This is Senate Government Operations, and we are today looking at a couple charters. And I apologize, I had originally scheduled 3 charters for this afternoon, but given the governor's budget address, I hadn't figured that in, and so have rescheduled, and we're going to be looking at 2, Brattleboro and Burlington. So with that, Tucker, would you like to walk us through Brattleboro?
Yes, good afternoon, Tucker Anderson, Office of Legislative Counsel. You should have in front of you H361 as passed the House. It contains amendments to the charter of the town of Brattleboro. By and large, these amendments are designed to allow youth voters, which are defined as voters who are 16 to 18 years of age, to vote in certain town elections. We'll begin in section 2, which contains the amendments to the town charter. Section 2.1, which contains definitions for the entirety of chapter 107, the town of Brattleboro charter. There is added a new subsection C, which defines youth voter as any person who is 16 to 18 years of age and is otherwise qualified to vote in town elections pursuant to 17 VSA, Chapter 43, Subchapter 1. So essentially what that does is it sets aside just the age component of that voting qualification subchapter and keeps all of the other qualifications for voting in town elections. In the following sections of the charter that are amended, there are going to be 2 major amendments, and then the rest will be conforming amendments, adding youth voter into specific sections of the charter to carry out the purposes of those larger amendments. The first of the big picture amendments is in section 2.2, which provides generally for the election of officers by the voters of the town of Brattleboro. You'll see that this section starts with the statement that on the first Tuesday in March, the annual meeting day, the voters and youth voters of the town shall elect by Australian ballot the following. To make sure that we didn't inadvertently make mistakes in the language of the charter, we put in those little ellipses, but the ellipses here is important because there are enumerated officers that are elected under this section. And for purposes of this youth voting, that would include representative town meeting members, which are elected by district, a select board of 5 members, a board of 3 listers, 3 trustees of public funds, a moderator, a first constable, and a second constable. Included in the amendment in this section is some technical cleanup concerning the election of the school directors for particular boards and for the Union High School. Because of consolidation, these seats are no longer elected. This was included in this section as a technical correction by the town. Section 2.3, this is one of those conforming amendments that I was speaking of earlier. This inserts and youth voters to ensure that youth voters are included in the election of representative town meeting members. Section 2.3a, this is the second of the 2 larger substantive amendments that I was bringing up. This allows youth voters, in addition to all other voters of the town, to request an early absentee ballot. I'll read through subdivision 4 here and highlight where this was discussed in the House. As authorized for certain town elections pursuant to this charter, a youth voter who will be at least 16 years of age on the day of the town election and chooses to vote early shall vote in the same manner as a youth voter on election day, provided that that voter completes the early voting form required by the town clerk. This is the same language that is used for other voters who are requesting those early and absentee ballots. Much of the discussion in the House was just around what would be a 15-year-old being able to request the ballot, provided that they will be at least 16 years of age on the day that they vote, the election day. Section 2.4, another conforming amendment allowing youth voters to serve at the representative town meeting. Again, the ability to vote and to be elected are unified unless they are specifically separated, and that may raise some constitutional concerns. But here we're just adding that clarifying term. Section 2.5, similar amendment here, adding youth voters for the at-large election of the select board. Section 4.1, further clarifying amendment for the election of the select board, and the same in section 10.3, along with some technical corrections. So Brattleboro is very thorough with how they set out the election of their select board and representative town meeting members. The charter amendments are set to take effect on passage, and that is the entirety of H 361 as it sits in front of you.
So Tucker, go back, will you, to 2.2? I guess somehow I missed something there.
What did you?
I did too.
I guess I didn't understand it. We're saying youth voters cannot vote in the, well, there are no longer 5 school directors, and there is no longer Union High School directors. So that's crossed off because there isn't anything there anymore.
Correct. So no voters, regardless of whether they're voters or youth voters, vote for those positions because they don't exist anymore.
So are there any things that youth voters, the way this is, it isn't your fault here, but the way their charter is, are there any things that youth voters cannot vote for that is local?
Not as it's spelled out in the charter. So that section 2.2, as far as I know, sets out all of the town's elected officers. Happy to have someone correct me on that, but if those out there who want to investigate this, look up 24 Appendix, Chapter 107, Section 2.2. There's an enumerated list currently of 7 positions. I read through them. That's your representative town meeting members, select board, the school directors, which are here repealed, the board of listers, the trustees of public funds, moderator, first constable, and second constable.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Clarkson.
So Tucker, this includes very thoroughly the youth voters being able to vote for all these things. Are youth voters eligible to serve in any of those capacities?
Yes. So being able to, or having the capacity or qualification to vote for an elected office also allows you to run and hold that office. One concern that was raised in the House committee and that was discussed and vetted is whether any of these positions would require someone to be 18 years of age in order to have capacity, for example, to authorize contracts. Some of these officers have embedded statutory powers where they can sign for and issue contracts. That discussion was primarily around the town's legislative body, the select board, and the appropriate answer there is that the select board member, singular, whether they, regardless of their age, is one vote on the legislative body to approve those financial decisions. So the capacity of one individual member would not determine the contracting capacity of the legislative body. I hope that that explanation made sense.
Would there be any concern about a constable? Because there are requirements for constables. They have to, so somebody could run for constable, but just as I could run for sheriff, but I couldn't serve.
Correct. You could run and you might even win, but if there are additional qualifications for the office and you don't meet those qualifications, you can't hold the office.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. Yes, Senator Colmore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And forgive me if this is too obvious to everybody else, but how does Brattleboro pass its school budget? Do the town representatives vote on it?
On its school budget, they have 3 elementary schools.
And a high school.
The high school is a Union High School. It isn't just a Brattleboro High School, and now it's part of the new district on Wyndham Southeast Education District instead of supervisory union. So Brattleboro alone doesn't vote on that at all. It's the district.
Okay, but would the youth voters have a voice in passing or not passing a school budget?
I honestly don't know about the 3 elementary schools. If they do their budget, I don't think they do it at town meeting. I think they have a separate school board meeting for those 3 elementary schools, but we should check on that.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know that, I think that there was some mix up here with, they have a new town manager. So I don't think anybody is here to answer our questions from Brattleboro. Senator Clarkson?
So Tucker, are there any other jurisdictions in the United States that allow 16-year-olds to vote?
I don't have any research prepared on that, so I'm not certain. And I will admit that we did that research at one point, but this bill was initially introduced 2 or 3 years ago. So I'll have to go back and check my notes. My apologies.
No, don't be silly. Thanks. It's just like, that's the first question that comes to my mind is, has anyone done this before?
Yeah, I think they worked on this for a really long time. There's a group of youth that have been working on it for probably 6 or 7 years.
So they're no longer 16 years old.
Right. They're probably eligible voters right now, currently.
And Tucker, perhaps you could share with us what the vote was on this.
I also do not have the charter approval packet with me, so I'll have to go back and track that down as well. We usually keep those with our committee files, which get archived every 2 years.
Okay, I think some of those are sort of my key questions is.
I think, as I remember it, the vote, I think, was pretty overwhelming, but I cannot remember. So any more questions on this one? And I think that a lot of the concerns here are going to be the same concerns when we did non-citizen voting.
A little different for me anyway.
The kind of philosophical question that I have is, and this actually has been answered to my satisfaction, was we're changing things like the age when somebody is a juvenile. We're increasing it because certain functions haven't developed yet, but those are mainly functions that take place in instantaneous situations, or what do I want to say here? The function that regulates voting is a kind of a more cold, objective reasoning, and that is better developed in youth by the time they're 16 than is the I don't even remember what it's called, the function that says that looks to the future, or that makes
The
you
snap judgment piece, the
yeah.
It makes me think of impulsive versus contemplative.
right.
Yeah, there is a term for it. And if Senator Sears was here, he would know exactly what that term was, but he's not here, unfortunately. So I guess that's about as much as we can do with that one today.
And
Yes.
well, just on other votes, do we know how the House voted on this and how the committee voted on it?
I think that is all in the package that I guess we could look it up on their
Oh, okay,
calendar.
more to follow.
When I pull together the charter approval packet from the Secretary of State's office from back when this was initially passed by the town, I'll also look up the votes in the House committee and on the House floor.
Thanks, and other jurisdictions nationally.
And I think the House voted on this last session, not and it's been sitting in rules.
Yeah, this was released by Senate rules.
Mhm. Well, they
Oh.
have to release anything that's sitting there.
Right.
So, all right, so Tucker and committee, I apologize for not getting the appropriate people here to answer the questions. We'll make sure that they are next time. And so should we jump to Burlington? Okay. So Tucker, do you want to walk us through, I believe it's 454?
You should have in front of you H 454 as it passed the House. H 454 was a committee bill that was passed out of House Government Operations. It contains one of the proposals that was passed by the voters of Burlington on March 2nd, 2021. The one piece that came over to you is contained in section 2. And that is a change of both the number of members and the composition of the Burlington Airport Commission. The charter amendments here in section 2 amend section 120 of the city charter. The first instance of amendment increases here in section 120 the number of members from the city of Burlington from 4 to 5, and it adds one additional legal voter that is from the city of Winooski. Further on in the section 276 of the charter is amended to do the same things. In subdivision A1A, it increases the number of commissioners from the city of Burlington. And then in subdivision C, it adds the following language. In addition to those members, the Board of Airport Commissioners shall include one legal voter of the city of Winooski to be appointed by the governing body to serve for 3 years and until a successor is appointed and qualified. The charter proposal is set to take effect on passage.
And thank you. Are there any technical questions for, and we have an amendment? Okay, so Tucker, do you want to let us know what the amendment is? And then we'll go to Senator Chittenden and then Representative Small. And welcome to our committee. You have not been here. I haven't seen you since last year.
I know. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. All right, so Tucker,
So the amendment that you have in front of you proposes not to change the number of members in the underlying bill, but to change which cities and municipalities they represent. So the amendment keeps in place that the Board of Airport Commissioners would increase to a 7-member board. But instead of increasing the representation from the city of Burlington from 4 members to 5 members, with a member from South Burlington and a member from Winooski, it proposes to add a member from the town of Williston. So under Senator Chittenden's amendment, the commission would consist of 4 members from Burlington, 1 from South Burlington, 1 from Winooski, and 1 from Williston.
okay, great. So Senator Chittenden, would you like to, and wait, first, before we go to you, I apologize to Representative Small. You have not been in our committee before, so you probably don't know who we all are. And if you do, forgive me, but I would like us to introduce ourselves to you so that you can know who we are. Senator Chittenden obviously knows who we are, or I hope he does. So I'm Jeanette White from Windham County.
Hi, I'm Anthony from Washington County.
Brian Collmore from the Rutland District.
And happily, I've had the pleasure, Taylor Allison Clarkson, Windsor County District.
Keisha Rom Hinsdale, Chittenden County. Great to have 2 of my colleagues from Chittenden County in committee.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I apologize.
Watch
for that.
out.
What?
Watch out, a lot of Chittenden representation here.
So Senator Chittenden, do you want to tell us why this amendment?
Absolutely. Thank you. I just want to start off by thanking the committee for taking this up and giving me some time to this. When H454 came up last May, I didn't want to miss a chance to highlight an important issue to my district, the region, and the state, and a long-running issue with a lot of history. I submitted a 1-page letter outlining my testimony for follow-up reference. It's on the website, as well as 2 documents I referenced in that, including a 2013 Airport Strategic Planning Committee presentation file and a 1985 legislative study on BIA governance. I just want to make crystal clear, I fully support H454 with or without amendment. As you all know, this charter gives a long overdue voice to the city of Winooski on the BIA Airport Commission. I fully support that happening. This amendment that was proposed to build on this, was just proposed to build on this governance improvement by giving a representative voice to the other community directly affected by the use of our airspace. If you look at where the landing strip is, the town of Williston, on this advisory committee. I have just 2 more really short statements. I'll be done just in a minute if I may, Chair.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Great.
We're not short on time today.
Great. So the Burlington Airport Commission is an advisory body that helps set noise mitigation priorities like noise monitoring, berms, home insulation programs. They also help prioritize grant application opportunities, and it has a voice in setting the long-term strategic plan for this state and federally funded asset. The crux of my call for testimony and this amendment that's before you is just to advocate for more voices representing the public interest over our county airspace, to have a seat at the table on this advisory commission. For many of you that aren't from Chittenden County, you might not know that the airport is actually not in Burlington. It's in another municipality, South Burlington, and the landing strip directly affects Winooski and then Williston. Since asking for last May for testimony on H454, I've had multiple meetings with Mayor Weinberger and Mayor Lott of Winooski and Burlington, not respectively, but inversely, as well as many other community leaders. Also since May, new management is now directing aviation at BIA. Through these discussions, it is clear to me that management of the airport is going in a good direction. And after speaking with Representative Small this morning, I'd like to, of course, the committee can do whatever they want, but I'd like to withdraw this amendment for consideration, as I see it as important to honor the will of the Burlington voters with the original language on the ballot. And there are other paths to continue the conversation on airport governance that might be more appropriate than this charter change. I still believe in the amendment, but I'm not necessarily of the mind that I'm a new legislator and still learning the ropes around here. I'm not necessarily seeing this charter change as the best place to advocate for looking more closely at ways for governance. But you all are experts in this, and you can do as you so choose. I really hope that this is still an acceptable use of this committee's time, and I'd welcome any other conversations or on other bills that might address this multi-municipality component of the Burlington Charter. But to expedite passage of this important charter change, please allow me, if I don't know what the format or the protocol is, to withdraw this amendment and offer my full support for the charter change as presented. Again, I hope I didn't step on any toes by advocating for this amendment, only to offer to withdraw it, but I just don't necessarily see it as necessary to include in this charter change at this time.
Thank you. And I don't believe you stepped on anybody's toes. I learned a lot about the airport, which I'd never paid any attention to before. I've only been there twice, once to fly out and once to have a tour. But I learned a lot. And we don't usually, you don't have to withdraw anything. If we so choose, we just won't amend the bill. That's the way it would happen. But Senator Clarkson, did you have a question? And then we'll go to Representative Small.
Yeah, I just have a question currently. It's just, I know it's in South Burlington. Thomas, why are there so many more Burlington members represented on this commission and only one South Burlington representative? I don't get it.
I need about 3 hours of your time. May I address the question, Chair?
Yes, please.
I probably need about 3 hours of your time, but really quickly, 100 years ago, Burlington, the municipality of Burlington bought a cornfield off a South Burlington farmer and to use as a landing strip. And that this governance model has grown up around it, even though the modern aviation age has drastically changed how we use our airspace. This came up actually in the 80s. Burlington was looking to do some other things, and there was in your materials available today, they comprehensively looked at the airport, and that created this new airport enterprise fund. So it's now managed entirely fiscally separate from the city of Burlington. It is still a department within the city of Burlington. But that was also when South Burlington was given a seat at the table for the Airport Commission for overseeing the Airport Enterprise Fund. It's also changed again over the time. More recently, in 2013, it was recommended, and that's the other document there, to look at governance more thoroughly and actually ask the state to look at governance. I serve also on the South Burlington City Council, Senator Clarkson. I think we would make better decisions as well as less friction in this area if we look more closely at how to make sure we have the right voices around the table on this asset. I hope Representative Small would agree to that. And that's where I see other advocacy channels to just make sure that we have the public and not just Burlington. Burlington has a right, and it is the Burlington International Airport, but we all own the airspace. And so I think this is just a carryover from a previous time. And what we're just looking to do is to modernize and to make sure that everybody feels heard as we agree to how this airspace, which Burlington doesn't own, we all own, the county owns, the state owns, the public owns, so that we all make decisions over that public airspace.
So I think that I had talked to Senator Chittenden before, and I'm going to go to Representative Small because I think she might have some ideas for us. But we thought that even if this amendment isn't passed with the charter change, that this was a good way to start this discussion and to make people aware of it. So I think Representative Small, you have some suggestions of moving forward here.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Senator Chittenden.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair, for having me again today.
Yep.
I mean, you all just set me up for success with my testimony and figuring out just discussing the amendment, because we are talking about a charter change here and following the will of the voters. And this amendment to the charter in particular had 81% of the voters' support. So I feel it's important and integral in moving that piece forward, especially in giving a solid voice to Winooski. As right now, there's an unofficial voice. Our mayor attends each of the commission meetings and is able to offer input, but there is not an official vote from Winooski in the deliberations. But I think the conversation around the amendment really begs this question of what governance looks like and making sure that all that are impacted in the region by the airport are able to have their voices heard on the commission and beyond. And so I know we have H52, which is still in the House and has been introduced over various sessions that looks into the governance of the airport. Really builds on actually an executive order that Governor Cunin did that looked at this exact piece, but seemed to fall by the wayside as we talked about governance. So I think it is a worthy question in thinking about how we move forward with governance over the airport, but would appreciate swift action in receiving a seat for Winooski, even if it also adds an additional seat for Burlington.
Did you say that there is a bill in the House that looks at the whole governance issue?
There is H52.
H52. Do you know if the committee is going to take that up this year or?
Sadly, I have not heard whether the committee is going to take that up, but I'm happy to check in with my colleagues and see if there is any traction.
Okay, that would be good. I was surprised when I learned that the Burlington airport was actually in South Burlington, not in Burlington, and that it impacted probably Winooski and Williston even more so than Burlington because of flight patterns. And then when I started thinking about it, I started thinking about the Rutland Airport, which I believe is a regional airport and is not, I don't think, controlled entirely by the city of Rutland, even though it's the Rutland Regional Airport. So all this stuff just started rattling around in my head, and it made sense for us to start to make sure the conversation is started here and continues. Yes, Senator Polina?
And given that thought, I just wonder, I mean, since I like the idea of adding somebody from Winooski, but I'm wondering what the rationale is in adding another person from Burlington. I mean, so
Yeah.
what's the guiding principle behind that?
Yeah.
No, it's just one of those things, huh?
It doesn't make much sense, does it?
Well, it seems
Representative Small.
counterintuitive to what we're talking about doing.
Exactly.
But we're talking about that. The voters of Burlington weren't talking about this.
Well, of
Right.
course, they want more representation. They're Burlington. What about South Burlington voters? What did they vote?
They don't vote.
I know.
This is a Burlington charter change. So neither Winooski, Williston, nor South Burlington had any input into the Burlington charter change.
Got it. But they're the hosts of the airport. And as
Right,
such-
that is the issue, but that's why they didn't vote. So Representative Small, did you?
Yes, I believe this came out of an MOU agreement between the leadership of Winooski and Burlington to have a compromise to allow us an additional seat, that it would also come with an additional seat for Burlington.
Okay.
And I think
Burlington
it
is
highlights
pretty,
an important piece of not being able to have a vote on how this commission is set up.
so I would suggest committee that perhaps if, since this was a vote by the voters of Burlington, that perhaps we honor their vote to change their charter, but that we open up the governance structure of the airport itself in a different manner and make whatever changes we want to there. And that would be potentially voted on by the residents of Burlington, South Burlington, Winooski, and Williston as a whole. I don't know if that makes any sense to do that or not. Senator Clarkson?
Do we have the authority to do that?
I believe that it is a charter that is granted to the airport. I don't know if we have the authority or not, but we can do it.
Oh, that's never stopped us.
Right.
Not we, but it would be nice to know that if we actually did anything, it would make a difference as opposed to just sort of, well, you know what I mean.
Senator Chittenden?
So other municipal entities exist that I always look to as a model. So for example, Green Mountain Transit, formerly CCTA, Chittenden County Transportation Authority, that is a multi-municipality formed body of governance over an asset that has buses as well as property in different counties. So that is a legislative charter that was passed. So I think what my understanding of this topic so far is there certainly could be a separate charter for the Burlington International Airport, and my 7 years on the South Burlington City Council, that makes a lot of sense. To that right now, we're going to be adding 2 other municipalities inside the Burlington charter, yet those municipalities, as much as they're in there, they don't get to vote on that. So I think it makes sense from my limited understanding of the rules to create a separate charter, and I think that's been done in other cases.
Oops, sorry about that. Senator Polina, will you do this while I see what this is?
I'll do this, whatever this is, until she does whatever she's doing, which we'll all find out about. I have actually a random question. Might not, well, maybe not random, but I'm wondering, are you aware of other charter changes from Burlington that will coming our way?
Well, there was the one that we didn't act on.
No, we haven't we don't have any other charter changes yet, but there are at least 2 more, I believe, coming to us
Right.
from the
Yeah,
House.
okay, that's what I was wanting to get clear on that. I thought there would be
Yeah.
a few others. So I wasn't
There's
sure.
where is the firearms one of them?
Well, I don't know, but they're,
No, that was a
my
couple of
unders-
years ago, I think.
yeah.
But has that
That-
come back?
My understanding is that there were 3 changes in the charter vote, and the House separated them into 3 separate bills because the feeling was that they were so different that each should be addressed separately.
Okay.
That was my understanding. Is that right, Senator Ram Hinsdale? Oh, you don't live in Burlington anymore, but you might remember.
I don't live in Burlington, but I've been talking to the Burlington delegation a lot around these charter changes, and I believe that's correct. I think they all deserve separate due consideration. If I may add my 2 cents right now about
Yeah.
this, I'm very sympathetic to Senator Chittenden's amendment as someone from Chittenden County. I think it would be helpful to hear from, the Williston town manager, someone in Williston, to make sure that they want to have this responsibility, to hear from someone in Burlington about their reasoning for adding another Burlington seat, but also recognizing that there's not really another way for anyone else affected by Burlington Airport to weigh in on this kind of charter change. So this really would be their only opportunity to plea for a voice and a seat at the table, without going directly to Burlington and not knowing whether or not Burlington had denied that request. And as we know, when Winooski made that request, they simply added another Burlington seat. I think this is something that our committee should weigh very carefully for the good of the region.
So Senator Ram Hinsdale, let me ask you this. Do you think that we should do it as part of this charter change, or should we honor the vote of the municipality, which is what we usually do, and then open up the whole conversation about the airport in a separate potential charter for the airport?
I mean, I think that's a decision that we could make after hearing from a few of the regional stakeholders, because really otherwise, I don't know what the process would look like for, being able to open up the conversation. I think it would at least be good to know what it would look like to open up the conversation before we simply pass this, just so we know what our options would be afterwards.
Okay.
So I do think there's a little bit of due diligence before just saying, let's pass it and move on. I certainly understand passage of it for Winooski and the urgency for Winooski to have a voice at the table, which, to be fair, Williston hasn't been hounding me to have a voice at the table. Winooski has been very clear that they want this voice at the table. So, if there was a way, maybe to Senator Polina's point, to at least give Winooski a seat at the table, maybe not give Burlington an additional seat, but then weigh the regional conversation. That's something that I think that we have multiple paths forward, but I do, see that Winooski sort of urgently has been asking for the seat at the table for a while.
So I believe, yes, Senator Polina.
Well, I basically agree with Senator Ram Hinsdale, but I think I get queasy about making changes to a charter change that comes before us, because on the one hand, we want to honor the vote of the citizens. On the other hand, we're saying, well, we don't live anywhere near you, but we're going to sort of make an amendment to your charter change and just make it a different thing. I would go slow on that. I just think that's a slippery slope. So I like the idea of going ahead with this amendment, with this charter change, and then having a broader conversation around another bill. I would be more than open to doing that. I just get queasy about messing around with somebody's charter change without them having enough input into it.
Yeah, I think our policy in this committee usually is if the voters voted on it, even if we disagreed, we probably, the voters voted on it, and
Who are we to tell them otherwise?
who are we? There are plenty of people who probably thought we shouldn't have been elected, but the voters voted us in, so there we are. So I would, what I would do maybe is I'll send out I thought we did send an invitation to the mayors. But I don't, Gail, did we hear back, or did we not send an invite?
Madam Chair, we did not invite them.
Oh, I thought we had. Okay, so I guess what we should do is hear from maybe the mayor of, or representative from Burlington, from Winooski and Williston. Does Williston have a mayor? Or do they have, they'd have a select board, right? They probably have a town manager.
Think
Okay.
they have a town manager.
Okay. And just hear from them about this, and then we can decide. And I will also check with Tucker and others about how we would go about getting H-52 over here, or getting some vehicle for doing some kind of a look at the whole governance issue of the airport. Does that make sense, committee?
Yeah, it does. Am
Yeah.
I hearing this right? That it's possible that there's this, that the airport has its own charter? That we could mess around with that?
I don't know if it does right now or not. I don't think so. I think that it is just within the charter of Burlington.
Okay.
But it's something we could explore.
And we could look at Rutland and how the Rutland Airport operates, and how, if they, yes, Senator Collmore, you probably know.
You give me far too much credit, Madam Chair. No, and I'm still struggling, I guess, to understand the exact situation. I also have not been to the Burlington International Airport more than maybe a half a dozen times in my life. Again, to use the, planes coming in or out. So as I understand it, and I think you did a great job, Senator Chittenden, explaining that it's the city of Burlington actually owns the airport, but it's in South Burlington through a rather strange happenstance of events that happened hundreds of years ago or whenever it was. But I am curious, what sort of issues, we hear a lot about the noise that's generated from the military planes that go in and out, and I assume that's part of the angst that's going on there. But I'm curious about what are some of the issues that the actual entity of the Burlington International Airport considers, and I guess the other towns or municipalities that border it feel as though they don't have any input into some of the decisions that are made. So, for instance, in Rutland City doesn't own the Rutland State Airport. As far as I understand, it's a state airport that happens to be in North Clarendon, not in the city of Rutland. But to me, I am not aware of any sort of issues that have come up in the same sense that Burlington has. You go to the Rutland Airport, you take off and you come back, but there's never been sort of any governance issues that I can remember happening, because it's controlled by the state pretty much in terms of policy. So if either Representative Small or Senator Chittenden can help me understand, in other words, what's the deal? What's the problem? What are we trying to fix here?
Okay, so take it away, Senator Chittenden and Representative Small.
Well, a lot of it has to do, Senator Collmore, on land use. So over the years, houses many would argue, were built too close to the fence line as the airport has gradually grown. And I think it also has to do with volume. So this is their busiest airport throughout the state. So that creates a lot more of the friction. If in North Clarendon, a lot of growth or housing or neighborhoods were built up around that airport, I think you'd be hearing the same type of friction. I would just put it this way. Right now, the city of Burlington would like to rezone some parcels of land that are located in South Burlington. They used to be homes, and then they were acquired by the FAA, and they want to repurpose them to be used for commercial purposes. which makes sense but they have to go through South Burlington zoning and regulation. And then that creates other frictions because South Burlington wants to press for making sure those buildings dampen sound that would otherwise be emitted from taking off planes. And so it just creates a lot of friction. There was the solar field put over our capped land field. So there too was some friction. Our taxing, so the tax, how much South Burlington pays in lieu of taxes, we spent a lot of money on lawyers. They got before my time, about 8 or 9 years ago, that was probably about a 2 or 3 year discrepancy and disagreement. There's been fights over dog parks. So Senator Collmore, all I'm looking for is just giving a channel for representatives to have a voice, and it's just an advisory committee. So this is not talking about taking over control. The city of Burlington will continue in the current management. This advisory committee is really just doing that, just advising. And I just want to make clear, I fully support H454 as is. So you can certainly do testimony from the mayors and Williston, but I'm pretty sure they're all in support of H454 as is. I love what you're talking about, the broader discussion, a separate discussion about other things, but I just, as one senator, fully want this to move forward as it's presented because Winooski needs this seat.
So I'm going to call him Senator Clarkson, but I'm first going to say that there might be options here that are different that we haven't even thought of. Rutland is a state airport. Maybe, should this be a regional airport? Should it be a state airport? What's the difference? How are they controlled? Who controls them? What's the interaction with the towns? If it were a state airport, what's the interaction with South Burlington and with Winooski and Williston and other towns around there? And I don't know those answers, but I think that those are the kinds of things that I would love us to look at. We used to have down here what we called Dummerston International Airport. I'm sure you've all heard of it. It too was in a cornfield and had a hangar there for 5 airplanes, and it was really owned by 5 guys. But it was called Dummerston International Airport, and it was controlled by the town of Dummerston. But
I miss its windsock.
yes, and those
You see it
5
on
guys, those 5 guys have either died off or their eyesight has become so bad they can't fly anymore. So
Well,
we no longer have it. So Senator
I
Clarkson.
think it is a big conversation. And as you know, the Agency of Transportation, they have a person who oversees this whole program, the airports and all the other airports in Vermont. Because I think this is I may be wrong, but I think, Thomas, this is the only one that's owned by a municipality. Everything else is a state sanctioned and state airport. The other impact that Thomas didn't mention is the huge grand list hit that South Burlington took, because all the houses that are affected right by the airport have lost all their value. I mean, no one wants to live there. So you basically gutted a whole community by the activity of this airport. And so it's had a big tax impact on South Burlington, from what I understand so I actually think these are all great things to explore, Madam Chair, and one that we might, so I'm always interested to go in new directions with you, and I'm willing to go there. But I think that for this moment, I think the Burlington Charter is what and what the voters in Burlington voted is what we need to deal with. But then I'm ready for an adventure.
Okay, so here's my suggestions. The 2 of you who are visiting us today don't know this, but Senator Collmore always calls this the Surprise a Day Committee, because you never know what's going to come up in here. I don't think we've ever dealt with airports before, but that doesn't stop us. So what I'm hearing from Senator Clarkson and Senator Polina is that we pass this charter change, because it was the charter that was voted on. And Winooski is, as soon as this passes, they have a seat, which they don't now, and they are desperately looking for that and have for a long time. So at least it would give them a seat there. And then we continue the conversation in a broader way. Is that what I'm hearing from committee members?
Yes, that's what I'd be interested in that and learning about the other airports, and as a big user of the Rutland airport, and we have one in Springfield. I mean, there are a bunch of them. So we have lots to discuss. I mean,
And I think that we could probably work with Senator Mazza also on transportation around this issue, and maybe have some, a couple sit downs and try and figure it out.
yes, I
I know
can't.
they've also been doing some work around the St. Albans Airport.
I didn't
Some
even know
growth
there
going-
was one.
There you go.
There's
Yes, Senator Chittenden.
So a lot of these questions that you're raising are really what H52 is focused on answering, is to charge a task force to really study these things. So I'm working on that. I've talked to Diane Lampier over in the House about it, and I do plan to bring it up with Senator Mazza. But if it's a GovOperations Committee discussion as well, happy to have those. But that's where in my original opening remarks, I'm looking at other ways to advocate for governance over this asset.
So maybe we work with Senator Mazza, and we can they might be able to add, if the House doesn't add something to the transportation bill, maybe we can work with him and they can, yeah.
great idea.
And I think that Representative Small, that was, you were kind of thinking in that same direction. Am I right about that?
I was, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So Senator Collmore, you look pensive.
Well, only because I feel like I don't have enough information to, I don't want to say enough information to vote, but I guess I would prefer not to report the bill, even though you normally do charters, assuming I agree. But I guess I'm fine with doing that. I didn't know whether it made any sense to hear from the mayor of Winooski or Williston before that, or even Burlington, as Senator Ram Hinsdale suggested, or whether we're ready to just vote today.
I'm fine to hear from them. I don't know. I do think that that Burlington certainly isn't going to agree with our amendment. And my guess is that, anyway, we can do that. Yes, Senator Ram Hinsdale.
I mean, I just agree with Senator Collmore in the sense that I know that the voters, generally like more representation in Burlington. They probably really wanted Winooski to have this other seat. Probably felt comfortable giving Burlington more representation, but I haven't heard from Burlington's leaders why they felt compelled to add another seat for Burlington just because they were giving a seat to Winooski. And I think that's worth hearing from the city of Burlington and getting them on the record with why that was necessary.
I agree. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, we can hear that. But then if we change it, then we're changing the charter that they voted on. So we need to.
I'm
keep
just
that
seeking
in
more
mind.
information to make an informed decision
Okay.
about this vote. And again, and I understand that, a no vote would mean that Winooski has to wait longer for a seat. So I'm not saying that I'm entertaining that as a strong possibility, but I really want to hear from Burlington. If we contemplated more representation from Williston in the future, are they just going to keep adding Burlington seats, and what's their justification for that?
Oh, the way I look at this is that if we have a conversation about a larger thing that is going to be outside of the ability of Burlington to control that. So it would be a more regional or state approach, not Burlington. And my guess is, and I can't say this for sure, and I'll probably get myself in trouble with it, as I'm want to do on many occasions, right, Representative Small? I suspect it was just horse trading. We'll give you one, but we're going to add one for ourselves. That's my guess, but we can hear from them.
No, they didn't go further down up the alphabet.
So does anybody else have a suggestion? So we will schedule this, and I will try to, looking at the schedule here, I'm going to try to schedule this so that we can deal with it quickly, so that Winooski can know where they are.
While you're looking for a day, can I ask Senator Chittenden or Representative Small, when did South Burlington gain the seat?
1985, when the then Mayor Bernard Sanders was looking to do some different things that charged by Madeline Kunin a study of the airport. And I included that in the materials today. And they outlined like 9 recommendations, and 2 of them that actually materialized were, 1, to create an enterprise fund so that the airport is managed financially separate from the city of Burlington, and 2, to give the city of South Burlington a seat on the commission. There were other recommendations that didn't materialize, but still are really quite salient today to be considered. But we've had a seat since 1985. And the commission has adjusted over time due to other charter changes that were globally applied to the whole city back in like 2004 or something.
Thank you.
But for a city that hosts another city's airport, it is very modestly represented.
I agree with that, if I may.
So let
And
me,
it has had big impacts on the city. It's had, one should argue it has had much bigger impact on South Burlington than on Burlington.
so I'm going to check the schedule and see if there's any potential for maybe doing this on Friday so that we can wrap it up. I'll look at the schedule and see.
Yeah, we have pensions on Friday too, I think.
No, we don't.
We have
We have pensions on Wednesday. On Friday, we have the,
dedicated Friday to something, I thought.
no, that was, somebody just said that because we had pensions twice on Friday. Somebody said we're going to dedicate.
Got it.
Haven't done that. Friday, we have the adjutant general. Maybe I'll ask if he wants to put that off until the next week, and then we could have 45 minutes,
Yep, we have cemetery fencing
whatever that is.
and the adjutant and inspector general.
Yes.
And
Electronic media, media.
electronic, yeah.
And then this water issue that's a huge fight between St. Albans town and St. Albans city.
Right. So we could make it a more of a town focused day.
So I think that I'll contact the adjutant general and see if 1 o'clock would work, and we'll get the mayor in here from Burlington to ask what the horse trading was all about. Is that everybody okay with that?
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and feel free, I'll have Gail, make sure Gail sends you an invite to whenever we are doing this again, so that you can come and join us. And if you have any thoughts, let us know.
And thanks for the background information, Thomas.
Mhm.
Thank you all for the time.
Yes,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Thanks. Okay.
Good to see you, Taylor.
Great to see all of you, even if it is on these small boxes still.
No, but it's great. I got to see your whole face.
I know, what a difference. What a difference. Well, I look forward to seeing you again here soon.
Yep.
All right. So committee, I think because I can't, it's 3 o'clock. We do not have anything else scheduled for today because it was my mistake. I thought that we had invited the people to testify on the bills.
Don't we have another, while we have Tucker, do we still have Tucker? No. Oh, it's Tucker.
We had another, I took the Barry charter change out.
Okay, that's what I thought. You also had.
Because I didn't know how long the governor's budget address was going to be, and didn't want to shortchange anybody there. So
if we were able to get Tucker back, could we quickly go through the Barry one or
No.
not? Okay.
no, we can't.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm going to stop the live stream. I figure we can